Hey guys, the stream is up so you guys can share it to your personal pages, and then I'm going to connect the chat. We'll be good to go. The show is all yours. Welcome to Black Republican, Black Democrat. We're back.
We are back.
We're back, and we're bad, and we're black.
What's your name, man?
Oh, I'm Jamar.
Oh, I'm AK Kamar.
Well, welcome, bro.
Yeah, man. It's been a while, man.
It has been a while.
How was that vacation, bro?
You know what? Listen. So, okay. So, start the show off with blaming me while we haven't been on, huh?
Hey, man. You know, vacations are important.
Vacations are important. I had a fantastic vacation. You see how tan I've gotten, right?
You're very dark.
I know. Before I left, I was a white guy. You know, and now that I'm back.
Now you're back, you're black.
And I'm black.
You're blacker than ever.
And blacker than ever.
You know what's funny, though? I actually get super tan. Like, for real, for real.
You do?
Yeah. Like, it's funny, man. Because I kind of get, like, I call it, like India black, like
who?
Like in India, you know, like it's not
dot or feather.
A dot,
the
man.
dot. Okay.
But it's not like your darkness. It has more of like an orange hue.
That golden brown, right?
I don't know what it is,
it's
man.
It's that golden brown.
I look Middle Eastern though, or like Indian, or like I'm from Bangladesh. When I get super dark, I don't look blacker. I look like more non-black or something.
Well, next time we both leave, we'll come back with the black Republican and the black the other guy.
I can't do Indian accents.
Neither can I. I think that was kind of horrible. Someone would cuss me out, but that's okay. No, dude, welcome back. I'm excited to be back. Excited for tonight's guest and the guests going forward, man. You know, listen, I think it is important because you get that R&R. You know, I got a chance to clear my head, and then so I'm back. I'm focused, and I'm what's the word I'm looking for? Rejuvenated and energized.
Full
Absolutely. Thank you. And well, I don't know about full of life. Well, I hope so. I'm alive.
Well, if you're rejuvenated, man, you're full of life. You're full of energy, man. If you guys are tuning in, please make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that share button. Also, if you like what it is that we do, bringing back civil political discourse to conversations that are sometimes very, very heavy, consider visiting our Patreon account. The best way to get there is go to our linktree/BRBD. It's going to allow you to click on all of the links that connect to us. The most important one to us is that Patreon link, so you can become a subscriber. By becoming a subscriber, you actually fund the show. 100% of the contributions that come from the Patreon go to paying for the show. So please make sure to do that if you like what it is that we do. Even though we take a little bit of hiatus here and there,
well, you know,
we always come back with great content, and today's no exception. We have a great guest, but make sure to do that so you can follow us on our socials as well by hitting that link tree. So please do that. And then also make sure that you check out our sponsors. They're in the links in the description, but also Dennis Smith has been a friend of the show for a while now, and he does some really great things. Number one, if you're thinking about starting a business, he's the guy to talk to. If you have any questions at all in regards to what kind of business should you file, should you do an S corporation, should you do an LLC, should you do a sole proprietorship, he's the guy to talk to. He's going to get you all set up. Please visit his website, smithlawmn.com. You can send him an email, dennis@smithlawmn.com, and he'll be able to get you all squared away. He also does end-of-life issues, so if you need to plan for a will, a trust, he's going to be able to help you with that. But today we really want to push folks that want to get their business up and going. he's the guy to go and visit. And also, if you have any questions, you can give him a call at 612-889-3971. And of course, we've had a long time sponsor. He supported us really from the beginning. If you're anywhere in the Minneapolis region around
44th Avenue.
44th Avenue and
Well, no,
Lowell?
no, it's not Lowell. We thinking Northeast. It's on 44th Avenue, 44th Avenue North.
44th Avenue North and 17th. So 1701 44th Avenue. Please visit.
We've been going a while.
The Weber Mart. The Weber Mart. What you want to go to the Weber Mart for, man?
The Weber Mart. Well, it might be a one-stop shop. You can get your goods. You can get some mail services done there, and great conversation. And I'm tell you something.
Yeah.
In case of a riot, Kevin protects you.
He's a protector.
You damn right.
Right.
He has an AK-47. What is it? Is it AR? AK? Somebody.
AK-47.
Somebody. Shit.
But no, he's a great guy, Kevin. Stop by, let him know that you were sent from Black Republican, Black Democrat. Visit his business, patronize his business, grab a couple of drinks, and help support people that help support our show. And also, if you're considering being a sponsor, please send us an email. Again, go to that link tree. There's an email link that you can send us an email. And we would love to be able to help you with your business while you help us with our business.
Absolutely. And AK is telling the truth, guys. Listen, our sponsors are great to us, so please be great to them. Patronize their businesses. Use them. Use their services. Both Kevin and Dennis are great guys. We love them, and they support the show very well. So
yeah, man. So, since we've been gone, there's been a lot of stuff to come up.
Goodness.
But, one of the things that I really wanted to hit on, because it is, I guess, historic, but in a negative sense, is in Minnesota, the Attorney General Lugar announced that there was indictments. I believe, initially it was 48 people were charged, but this is a COVID fraud story. $250 million of COVID funds were basically misspent and stolen, used for all types of things that are not supposed to be used for, right? Because it was meant to go to feed children. Because you remember when school's out, right? People that qualified for different food programs. This is the main source of how these children eat, right? Because parents are often doing stuff and it's not in the budget because their kids go to school to eat lunch. And so these programs you could apply and you could, feed kids in the neighborhood, right? They could come by, stop by. You could go and deliver food to certain centers. And it turned out that this organization is it's this crazy thing. And so the thing that I wanted to kind of have a conversation about, I'm a free market capitalist guy. Right, we've talked about this on the show before. So for me, when something like this happens, it makes me even more upset because my big thing is that I think that private industry can do a better job than the government, right? Because it's the free market. Like if you think this service sucks, you can go and pick another vendor. You can't do that at the government. There's one government. You can't.
True.
There's not different
True.
governments. So when I hear stuff like this, it's upsetting. Because basically you had a nonprofit that, yes, was collecting certain funds from the government, right? Because they got a contract as a way to handle stuff. But it just kind of puts a bad light on everything. And so, for you, because clearly in this case, some of the people, that are, I think, charged, I don't know if indicted is, maybe it is.
They've been indicted.
They've been indicted. Like 3 of them worked on the mayor's staff or part of the mayor's staff. So there's heavy implications into at least Minneapolis Democrats. Like, how do you feel about this entire situation as it's unfolding right now?
Well, I've seen some of the some of the press conference that Scott Jensen and Matt Burke held, and I think that politicizing this is just as ugly as what those criminals did to defraud the people in the communities and the government. That's just simply what it was. They defrauded. They purposefully did. And the thing about it is, I worked on a campaign where where some of these cats contributed to. I worked on 2 campaigns where some of these individuals, contributed to the campaigns. And I know today, after speaking with one of the campaigns that I worked for, they're already paying it back. And it wasn't to the thousands. The other campaign that I worked for did not spend as much money with them. So it is disgusting. But I think that it's nothing new, right?
What do you mean by it?
Well, because I think that here's my thing. I was watching MSNBC the other day, and I think that the government they had some information came out that the government had missed, or how been defrauded out of over 400, they think, billion
Yeah,
dollars.
it's like 450 billion.
But they said the number they came out with was like 25 billion. Okay, when we know the number is greater than that. So the oversight to me was totally missed, sorely missed. I think we knew some of that. There's no way sometimes when there's money like this, there's people that always, there's the Bernie Madoffs and there's the Pookies and of the world that because sometimes they're greedy or downtrodden, they will try to get more money out of the system, right? That's to be expected. But I think that before you knew that these things could happen, so the oversight, I think, is where we start at. But I think what Matt Burke and Jensen is doing is calling for the education, the Department of Education's commissioner to be fired. No. How about, I think asking for an investigation is fair, but to call for her head, I think, again, is being political. Because right now, things could have happened with she had no knowledge of. She could have trusted, I could be in charge. I trust you to take care of her. And you trusted Bobby or somebody. So we need to find out who's responsible. And then if, after a thorough investigation, not political and not impeded, it finds out that she was totally negligent in doing her job and the oversight of those monies, yes, fire her ass.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you at least say that last part. But here's the thing. The reason it got politicized, when you have a cabinet and you're like, I'm the government, right? You're Tim Walz and you have these different commissioners that you've appointed. They have a job. And when something like this happens, there is a failure, there's a breakdown to a certain degree. Like, not everything that happens that's fraudulent can always go and point a finger back. But when we're talking about, so far, right now, the largest fraud case of COVID money, any one single source, that's like a big red flag, right? And so the second aspect to this is that initially Walz said, well, there was a lawsuit. Feeding Our Future sued, I believe, the Department of Education because the Department of Education said, hey, we're going to suspend payments because we got some information that some unrighteous things are happening here. And then they sued the Department of Education, and then a judge basically came out and had a ruling, right? Well, the Department of Education said, based off of their understanding of that ruling, that they had to resume payments. So that's what they said. And then the judge did something that is very rare, wrote an actual statement saying, no, I did not. And so because of that statement, that's what Matt Burke and Jensen are jumping on, saying, well, wait, this judge is saying he didn't say they had to resume payments. And there's some questions about what did the judge say versus what did he leave open to interpretation, and that the Department of Education took the most, if you want to say, careful route. And they said, well, our interpretation was open-ended, so we'd rather be on the side of, well, since it was open, we're going to say he wants us to resume payments. He didn't directly say resume payments. So I can understand, but at the same time, the buck has to stop somewhere.
No, someone has to be held responsible, bro. But again, don't come out being so political. Right now, Jensen sees himself sinking because of the abortion. He let himself step in, and he can't get out of his own way about that now.
Oh man, I've seen a couple of polls that he's only a couple points behind, man.
Listen, I laugh at that. He's going to lose, and he's going to lose big. Bro. I've seen him one time in North Minneapolis just last week.
Did you? Yeah.
Matt Burke, the way he introduced himself to black folks. First of all, there was like 8 people in the room. That's the truth.
No, but did you see his? So Burke's been doing this man on the street where he's going all over, and he went over north.
It irritated everybody there.
Yeah.
Afterwards, the talk was about how does a guy come and introduce himself?
But he's going back again.
He is not.
No, they are. They're going back, I think, on like
you
the 17th or something.
Take Lacey Johnson with you again, and it'll be another big failure like it was before.
I don't know.
You don't. Your first impression you're trying to make on black folks in this community is sticking a mic in their face, asking them questions instead of listening to the questions that they have for you. You jerk. That just was dumb.
Hey man, at least he's there. He's trying.
Dude, he was dragged.
I wish he would have done it earlier. I wish.
And then does he think he's going to get out of the what he? Okay, we got a guest. Let's bring our guest on because don't get me started on these guys. Don't get me started, ladies and gentlemen. We've had this great guest on before, and it's been a while, and we needed him back because sometimes you need a legal eagle on the show.
We need someone that understands. I have my bachelor degree in political science from University of Minnesota, but I've always known of Professor Schultz because he's a leading political science leader in the Twin Cities, and so I've seen him on a million TV shows, and I think that he has a really good political mind. He and I disagree, but he is a smart man. So welcome to the show, Professor Schultz. How are you?
I am great. How are you about you folks tonight?
We are good,
We're
Professor.
great. We're
Welcome to the
great.
show. Hey, listen, not well. First of all, today I actually happened to be looking, and I found some little tidbit about you. You've got a new book out already, right?
Yes, I do.
You got a
I
new
do.
book.
That's right. I do. I think they have a graphic for it or something like that,
You know,
maybe.
we
You
got-
Yeah, yeah.
show
We
it.
got a graphic, and we also got a link up to it.
I do. I
Okay.
wasn't quite
so
ready to
your
put it
so
up. But
your book though talks about one of the questions that I have for you tonight,
Right.
and let's just jump into it because
Sure.
we've been going for so long. Well, we were here when Roe v. Wade got
Overturned.
overturned,
We did a
but
show
since
on
then
it.
there's been such a political storm about it, and as I just talked about with when it comes to Scott Jensen, who let Tom Hauser walk him into it, and he stepped right into it, and he hasn't been able to get that stench off his foot ever since Tom Hauser helped him walk into it. So Roe v. Wade. Now the Republican answer is always, okay, it's not. It's the constitutional law here in the state. It's not going to be overturned. It's protected. Okay, that's the easy answer, and probably factual, but the fact that it was overturned, and you have what 15 or 18 states already, Professor, that have
Yeah.
those trigger laws that have banned abortion in any aspect, isn't that reason why most Minnesotans are afraid to elect a Scott Jensen or any other Republican?
Well, first off, my book is all about when the U.S. Supreme Court overturns constitutional precedent. And the basic point I make in the book is that the U.S. Supreme Court was basically laying turf for 50 years to overturn Roe, and so it shouldn't have come as a surprise. Okay, so if we do a couple of things about polling here, best polling evidence in Minnesota is about 60 to 65% of the American public, or rather of Minnesotans, think that women should be able to make decisions regarding terminating their pregnancy. You know, the numbers might vary a little bit, but somewhere in that area there. We've got a Minnesota Supreme Court decision that basically does the same thing as Roe. But look at, uh, although everybody is trying to say abortion rights, reproductive rights are protected in Minnesota, people thought that for 50 years with Roe versus
Right,
Wade.
right.
And it could, we could get a combination of what? Republicans take over, constitutional amendment. We could get a change in the Minnesota Supreme Court. We get a whole bunch of different things. It's a lot more fragile than we think it is in terms of reproductive rights in Minnesota. You're right; it's not an immediate danger, but listen, people got complacent all about the issue of abortion rights under federal law. Same thing could happen here.
And AK and I have
So
talked about it because I think we got a bet about it too. I think that some Republican will, with these other trigger laws, will make sure that gay marriage is on the ballot or gets overturned by the Constitution. Because again, as they said with Roe v. Wade, it wasn't in the Constitution. So they will say the same damn thing when it comes to gay marriage. I think that they will try to overturn gay marriage. So I think your book is interesting. Uh, Again, for what 50 plus years we had Roe v. Wade.
right.
How is it, or we see like with Trump, they say that right now Joe Biden's beating Trump with most elected judges, right? I think he's at 80
Yeah,
plus,
he's appointed a bunch
83 or
of
something
judges.
like
Yep.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, is it the judges that help protect these particular laws like Roe v. Wade or gay marriage, or how is it that the Constitution is so easily overturned by partisan judges?
Well, first off, you're right. Abortion rights, rights of same-sex couples, right to use contraceptives, none of them are written in the Constitution. They've been protected by judges for 50, 60, 70 years. And I'm going to make an argument and say that that's one way to protect them. But you know what's a better way to protect them? Social movements and social change that force our society to confront and make those changes. And think about, the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement came with the same time as Brown versus the Board of Education. Yeah, Brown did some things, but it was really what? Grassroots based movements by people that really are telling the people in authority, we want change. That's how you really do it. And maybe the only good thing that's come about Roe versus Wade being undone is it's now forcing people to what? To go out and say, we are going to form social movements, form social change, and we are going to require the political process to now protect abortion rights. And I was going to say, isn't that the model initially of how we overturned Plessy versus Ferguson, and separate but equal. It was social movements that did it. Isn't this how gay rights movements worked? How the civil rights movement worked? In some sense, I'm going to say this is what many of us were hoping. If you can any silver lining at all out of George Floyd's murder, we're hoping that what maybe we could get a social movement to really finally address
Police
racism
reform.
in
Yeah,
America.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
So I,
yeah,
I wanted to raise a couple of points. I think number one, when it comes to society culture, I think
yeah,
culture matters more than anything because there's a bunch of law in the books in a bunch of states
yeah.
that no one enforces because culturally it's not acceptable. I disagree fundamentally with Jamar in regards to Oberfell being overturned because I think that what Thomas laid out creates a very narrow path that I don't even think the other conservative justices agree with him. But I think that culturally, gay marriage is far more of a settled issue. And
We thought so with Roe
no,
v. Wade.
we did not because poll after poll, right? You mentioned Minnesota. There is a caveat. There is about 33-ish% of Minnesotans that believe that abortion should be unrestricted. But if you look at how many people want abortions 100% restricted, it's like 20-25%. But then there's this big gray area that say there should be some restrictions. So I look at that there is still a decent percentage of people that say I don't think it should just be unfettered no matter what. But when you ask people about gay marriage is it's completely like, yeah, like 80% or something like that are like, yes, it's not like there should be some form of ban or restriction. It's like, yes, like across the board. Now I know that some states can get a little bit closer, but I think that socially, this is one thing that people hate when I say it that don't like Donald Trump. But Donald Trump really did a lot in regards to the gay movement in the Republican Party of being
Where?
accepted. Scott Grinnell being appointed and things like that. And so again, it moved the needle. And so I think that society does matter. But I did want to ask your point of view when it comes to constitutional precedent. Your book, that's really what your book is, right?
Right,
It's
exactly.
it's a deep aspect. I made a TikTok video that got close to 750,000 views,
Okay.
where I broke down what I think about people that don't like the fact that Roe v. Wade was sent back to the states, and I say, depending on your interpretation, if you're an originalist, you're going to say there's
And a
not
who?
an originalist. You're going to say that there's not an explicit right that's been laid out. And so my question to you is, when we talk about precedent, do you see that the originalists on the court will say, I don't care about precedent as much when it comes to constitutional rights? I care more about the plain language, the original intent. And so that's kind of my first question is, do you think that the originalists care at all about constitutional precedents if they don't feel that the originalists didn't have that intent with that specific right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, clearly, this is a court right now that is less interested in precedent, unless, and this is what it happened in the Dobbs case. They said that they're only going to respect precedents or rights if there's a long-standing American tradition that supports it. Uh, and what I think they fundamentally misunderstand is the idea that our law is what is the text plus precedent. That's the basis of American law. I describe American law as like, I don't know, a chain novel, like a novel. Each novel has a chapter, or novels have chapters in them, and every court builds upon previous ones. And this is a court that's saying, well, we don't care what subsequent courts have done. We're going to freeze the Constitution back in time to 1787. And we're, as judges, we're not going to add anything to it. And that's not how American law works. It's about that building and building up over time. Again, original text plus precedent. Now, the other thing that scares me about this approach that they had in Dobbs, which said that, listen, we're only going to respect certain rights if there's a long-standing tradition or long-standing practice to support them. Well, hell, by that type of an argument there, we can make arguments to say, let's bring back slavery, let's bring back, racism, let's bring back a whole bunch of stuff. So I will say, I'm not an originalist. I do think you start with the text, but you build from the text and move forward from there. And the originalists, especially Clarence Thomas, Alito, take a very different approach.
Yeah, and so the only aspect that I would push back on is that now I don't practice law, so I can't really say I'm an originalist because there's so many concepts that would go over my head, right? Because I've never had a Juris Doctorate.
I'm originally black.
But I will say
you know
that when we talk about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, those are part of the Constitution. So I think the best way for me to describe is that, in Thomas's concurring opinion, he mentioned that this notion that privacy came from Roe v. Wade, and he, basically laid out a couple of other cases, and then he said that Casey went and expanded this notion, and so you have these enumerated rights that he just doesn't believe that's the path that we go. And so here's the question that I have: if you're talking about the social movement aspect, do you think it would be wise to try and amend the Constitution to include a right to an abortion if that's where you're at? And that way, if the Constitution is truly changed or amended, there would no longer be a question. And this is where we get into a sticky wicket, because you might say, well, there's not enough political will to amend the Constitution. And then I would say, well, then that means that there's not enough will, so that's why this should be a state's issue. But what do you think about that in regards to trying to amend the Constitution to include abortion as a right?
Well, clearly that's one approach to doing it, and if we can basically get through the machinery of passing it. And I was going to say that given the fact that it takes 2/3 of both houses of Congress and 3/4 of the states, and the way the states are stacked to favor rural interests, I'm not sure of saying that it's simply a fair process. The process is kind of loaded, but that's the process that we have. But clearly now we're going to have to go either the constitutional route or the legislative route to protect abortion rights, and that's going to
Technology, we kind of
Technology is
we'll
awesome.
get the professor back in a second.
Yeah.
Technology here. See, that's why COVID really did screw up things. Folks used to come in and interview.
Listen, this is why I like having this conversation.
Recording in progress.
Because I think Professor Schultz he's disagreeing with what I think the best route is, by saying that there's just not enough political will. And so here's the crux of the issue. I've said it on this program a million times. I am pro-life. I do think that abortion is wrong, but I also believe that unless we amend the Constitution, we need to actually leave it to the states. And so, like, when Lindsey Graham or McConnell? McConnell came out and he's like, "Oh, we're introducing this bill to ban abortion." I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like, I'm pro-life, man. I believe that's a baby, but it's not in the Constitution, man. So I can't sit here and tell you the reason why I want it to go back to the states is because it's not in the Constitution, and then you're going to go and try and pass a federal law to ban abortion. That is nonsensical. And I actually think, honestly, dude, I think McConnell's trying to throw the midterm.
Well, he's gonna throw them in. What? It's already thrown.
Why? Why does he want to do it? But Dobbs,
the Dobbs case. Is that the new acronym for what the hell does Dobbs mean?
Well, the actual case is Dobbs v. Mississippi.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's going to be a loser for Republicans, and the more that guys like McConnell keep putting their foot in their. Excuse me.
No, it was McConnell.
No, it wasn't McConnell. It was McConnell did want to introduce the first. So I think that it scares me when we say send it back to the states, because when we got certain guys, that when you got certain governors or certain states that where their judges are set up where they're so conservative, bro, that they don't think of the rights of all, right? And it scares me because, again, I think Professor talked about it. Honestly, slavery will never come back, but I think that
it's in the Constitution. That's why I was trying to push back, is that an originalist isn't going to say none of these amendments matter. Originalists, from every originalist doctrine that I've read, is not just about what did the founders believe. They're saying every amendment should be looked at in its original intent when that amendment became an amendment.
But when you got a guy
Looks like we
again
have
like
Professor Schultz
like
next.
Lindsey Graham going around fear mongering, it doesn't do your party any well. But here's the truth. The truth of the matter is, again, you guys are so hypocritical because you only want government out of your business when you want government out of your business when it concerns somebody else or a law that you don't like.
Not everybody.
Yes, it does. We're
You're
back.
back.
Professor. We're back. Technology.
You were in the middle of making a point about the cultural aspect or amending the Constitution, and you were kind of going from that. You said that you don't necessarily think that the constitutional amendment route makes as much sense, and then you cut off.
What I was going to say is that given the fact that the difficulty of adopting a constitutional amendment, it's probably going to be exactly what the court wound up saying in Dobbs. It's going to go back to the states. It's going to be back to state law. It's going to be back to maybe state constitutional law, state court decisions. But what's going to happen now, I think, is we're going to see an effort with social movements come together to try to bring cultural change and bring legal change together. And I think that's sort of the model that we've seen throughout American history is that, some people say that, well, change occurs from the top down. I think the best change occurs from the bottom up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, we concur then. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Professor, speaking of Supreme Court and Trump, this guy has gotten himself in a lot of hot water. AK and I've had this conversation before, and I'm glad we have a legal scholar, a real lawyer on this show. This guy, he even said, so I watched the interview he did with Hannity. This dude says, nonsensical? This dude says the most asinine things. The man said, Professor, that as president or outgoing president, he can think.
Commander-in-Chief.
He can think that a piece of paper should be declassified, just him thinking of it, and he can take it back to his office. I said, is this man, Professor, he can't be serious. Now, you guys make a humbug about the way the government laid out well, look at what they did. No, they were trying to show you all of the classified papers. And when you have such classified papers, Professor, that you had to go get even more permission to look at these things, right? Get more clearance to look at some of these. Then this guy has them just willy-nilly in his office in a file drawer that everyone can have access to. It's asinine that he believes that he has the legal constitutional right to do so. Can you inform myself or AK, is Donald Trump correct?
He is not correct. Think about the government, for good or for bad, as a big bureaucracy. Bureaucracies have rules. It takes all kinds of complex things to do things. To classify documents, there's procedure and make them top secret, or I was going to say from Animal House to make them double secret probation, whatever it is like that. But to make them top secret, I'm trying to think of that line there. But to make them top secret, you have to go through a series of written procedures to do that, and it's the same thing. To declassify them, you have to go through formal written procedures and rules to be able to do that. Now, the president could say, yes, I want to declassify him, but his thought is only the first step. There has to be an actual process which is included in writing in terms of declassifying that material.
So I have a question to that. I always like to view Trump's statements not in their literal sense, but in their procedural sense, right? So the first step, and you kind of already said this.
He's serious.
Is that, well, just think about this, right? If you are in your mind, right, you're like, I'm going to declassify this, right? And you're the commander in chief, right? That process for him declassifying it for himself is him thinking about it. But I agree that there is a route to let other people know that this is an actual document that you want to declassify. So I think this is where we're going to get into a rub, is because I think that Trump is laying out a legal argument that, let's keep a couple of things in understanding. When presidents have highly classified information, they're supposed to have these security, what do they call them? It's like a cliff.
Security clearances.
Yeah, but it's like they call it like a skiff, right? Like a secure. Okay, yeah. So you're supposed to have these skiffs set up whenever you're talking about a certain level of classified documents. And so within Mar-a-Lago, people might think that it was a garbage skiff, but he still had a skiff set up. And then on top of that, honestly, on top of it,
where did you see it
at? I read this big article.
Oh, please. Where's the pictures at?
That Atlantic did, where they were bashing him back in like 2017, 2018, because this was an issue. Is that the president, when he was President Trump, when he was president, it was hard for him because he just wanted to go and do stuff.
Because he's ignorant.
Well, no, because he's like, I'm the president. I'm going to go and do what I want to do. And they're like, no, you got to do this. You got to prepare this area. You got to make a skiff here. And they did it, but it was just always like, oh man, I don't know if this truly is as secure as it should be. So here's the question that I have for you. The commander-in-chief is the commander-in-chief, right?
Yeah.
And he has the ability to review any document within the United States purview. Is that correct?
As far as I know, yes.
And so this is a thing, and I think that the argument gets put from the right is not done so very, very
What?
well. But here's the thing, is that because he is the commander-in-chief, he doesn't have to ask permission to do anything in regards to declassification. And here's what I'm saying from a technical aspect. Because he's the commander-in-chief, he alone has the ability to make decisions. Now, his military commanders can disobey his commandments. You know, if he wanted to, and this is what people talk about, this is why people were afraid when Trump became president, that he could order a nuclear launch on anybody he wanted to for whatever reason. He has that authority. The question was, would they follow what he said? And if they didn't, he could have them shot and court-martialed and said, you're treasonous because I'm the commander-in-chief. Now, you're not the king-in-chief, but specific things that you have power.
Y'all seem to think so.
I don't think so.
Y'all think
But I think this is
they've got King Charles. Y'all have got King Trump.
So my question to you, Professor Schultz, is do you think that it is dangerous for a president to have that mindset in regards to declassification? And if so, who should have oversight over declassification if not for the president?
Well, there already is.
Yeah. Well, first off, nobody in this country should have so much power that they can do whatever they want. I mean, I was going to say a few weeks ago when the Queen died, I thought to myself, why are we covering this in the United States? We fought a war so we wouldn't have to deal with royalty.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
I think it's such a weird fascination the Americans have with British. It's weird.
But
True enough.
Said that, yeah, presidents are not kings. They don't have unlimited authority. They don't have unlimited authority to declare war. In fact, Congress has the authority to do that. And there are very clear rules regarding what the president has to do if the president wants to declassify information. Yes, he gets to look at it, but if he wants to make it more publicly accessible, there are procedures and rules that have to be followed. And part of the thing that we also expect presidents to do is to be caretakers of confidential information. And I'm still perplexed by why the heck all those papers were even at the Mar-a-Lago to start with. And there's no good reason for him to be there. He's no longer president. He should not have possession of them.
And that's what I said to AK. That's what I said to AK. And he argued with it, which is what he's going to do now, Professor. He argued me down that, and I said to him, the precedence that has been set, speaking of the book, is the fact that no other president has done this. Like, I remember, I think it was Nancy or Lady Bird J or something that took a vase or something out of the White House, and they made a whole big skirmish of it because I think it was given to her by like someone from Saudi Arabia or something like that, one of the kings over there or something, right? And she didn't return it, but nevertheless, it was a big skiff about that, right? What I'm saying is no other president thinks this but Donald Trump because of his ego. Let's be honest, because of his ego. Most presidents know that gifts that are given to the White House are not of the president. It's a gift to the United States.
Strip it when you walk out, like, I'm taking this. I'm taking the. Right. Thanks for this microphone.
This in the embassy.
So here's my theory. This is conspiratorial, but hear me out for a second, Professor. So the National Archives since Nixon has really been in charge of making sure that documents are preserved because they are the people's document. They aren't solely the president's, and
even letters to the presidents.
Everything, right? And so here's my theory. I looked back and I looked at who has appointed all of the I can't remember what the titles, but like the head, whatever, because they're in the librarian circuit, right? Like they're technically like, but the head of the National Archives. I want to say almost all of them since Nixon have been appointed by Democrat presidents. And so when I was kind of looking into it, I saw these letters back and forth, because you can go and look it up. There's these letters back and forth between the National Archives and Trump. And he would send letters back and they'd be like, you need to do this. And he'd be like, pound sand.
Exactly.
Essentially, I'm not doing this. Back when he, like 2016, 2017. And so my thing is, is that I think the National Archives is they're adamant. They're saying these are not your documents. These are the people's documents.
That's true.
Right? And former President Trump is saying, I don't care. When I was president, they were my documents, and now that I'm leaving, I'm going to follow some of your security stuff, but I'm taking this with me. And so this is my theory, is that
he's a petulant child.
Fine, and that's fine. I think that Trump, he said it before. If he takes a stand, he ain't backing down. That's
what
it.
An asshole.
When he makes a decision, that's it. He will die on that hill. And I think this hill that
he's going to get indicted on that hill too.
We'll find out. We'll find out. But that's my conspiracy theory. But the National Archives.
Two responses to that. First off, by the way, they never were his documents.
See?
Person. They were his documents as president of the United States, but not personally. But also, do you remember this woman named Hillary Clinton? And Hillary Clinton also failed to provide documents she was supposed to give to the archives. And so if your conspiracy theory is correct, those Democratic archivists were also barking down Hillary Clinton's back too.
I think they were, though.
They were. That's what he's saying.
But again, not from
they were.
Not from just a Democrat. But I'm just saying that's an additional layer that there was beef. It's the weirdest beef between the National Archives and Trump from when he first was president, when he got elected, because I think Trump's mindset is, I am the commander in chief. And this is my power, and I'm not going to be told what I can and can't do.
What a blowhard.
Let's let a court decide what's going to happen.
What a blowhard. Professor, we've got 5 minutes and 8 seconds here left with you. The Strip had a poll out, right?
Yep.
And the poll, what was the poll exactly?
So the Star Tribune and NPR, I think KARE 11, did some polling on a bunch of different stuff. And one of the things that was interesting to me is that there was a question that asked, do you think that crime has gone up? And the majority of respondents said yes. And then the second question was, when you're out at night near your home, do you feel safe? Or have you ever encountered a time or felt unsafe near your home? And 83% of people said no. So the thing that is interesting to me is there a phenomena in which people have a perception that they think crime is going up, and that, if they really felt that way near their home, that maybe things are being overblown? Or is there a perception that people don't want to feel like, they don't want to admit that, yeah, where I live, I feel unsafe? So I'm just kind of curious, when it comes to, this question, what's your intuition on people's perception when they're answering polls on things that they feel could say something about them that maybe they don't feel comfortable telling other people?
Well, clearly we have some problems with polling, and I'm going to do a parallel for a second here.
Yeah.
When we ask people what they think of Congress, people hate Congress.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate Congress.
That's true.
I pointed out to people once that, cockroaches and venereal disease have a higher rate of Congress. And why anybody would like venereal disease, I have no idea.
Right. Or cockroaches.
Or cockroaches, yeah. But when you ask people, do you like your own member of Congress? Oh, I love my member of Congress. And so we've got this gap in a whole bunch of things here. And I think this is one of them here also. You put on the news, yeah, objectively, we do know, by the way, unfortunately, across the country, violent crime is up. We do know this, across the country.
Of course.
And nonpartisanly, we should all be upset by the fact that too many people are killing one another at this point.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I think, you put on most of the major television stations, and what's the phrase? If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah. Fear porn.
So I think people are also feeding into those perceptions and into those worries. And so what I'm getting at here, there's a little bit of reality in people's answers. There's a little bit based upon perception. People may be saying, well, my neighborhood's okay, partly because maybe it is. Maybe they don't want to admit the fact that there's a problem. Maybe they feel personally safe. That's the problem with the polling. We'd have to pick through a lot more of this to figure it out. But it is a fascinating question here to look at it here, because I think most people probably do feel comfortable in their neighborhood and view crime as a problem somewhere else. But I'd also like to see how this is broken down, this polling, if they were to ask people in in neighborhoods of color, if they were asking people in neighborhoods that are populated by poor people, are we getting the same type of feelings? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, so the Strib did a good job. They actually broke this down. So they broke it down not necessarily by a specific community, but they broke it down by what they considered. Can't remember. It's like urban county versus like out. And so the number of people that felt safe dropped. So the question is, are you afraid to walk alone at night near your home? 83% is the average across all respondents. But when they asked in Hennepin County, basically Minneapolis, that number dropped down to like 76%. So still a pretty high percentage of people that are like, yeah, I feel all right walking near my home. And then same with St. Paul. It was in the high 70s. So that was the part that was interesting to me. So here's something that I've said, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. I think that when people live their life, they realize that the chances that they're going to interact with someone that is going to cause them great bodily harm is still a pretty small percentage, right? Like relative to everything else. But when you get that feeling that, oh man, things are going bad, it has this heightened sense. So like I say this to people, if I were to break down every single minute of every single day for the rest of your life, what percentage of time were you actually a victim of a crime, right? I mean, we're talking about hundredths of a percent, right? The vast majority of your life, you're not going to be a victim of crime. And so I think that that's something that I think when you put it into perspective, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be aware and cognizant and try and reduce that harm, because I'm a big believer that people need to feel safe, because that perception, that mentality. But at the same time, yeah.
So let me bait you a little bit here. Okay? So if everything you're saying is true here, then don't you think that Jensen and Burke are just playing upon irrational fears?
Yes.
So
well, not to mention they don't have message discipline either.
This is a fair point. I personally think that when we go after a governor specifically for just crime, you have to say, well, what specifically about their policy? I'm a guy, I don't like the low-hanging fruit, hitting people at the third grade, second grade level. And I'm not saying that Jensen and Burke always do that, because I do think that they try and go a little bit deeper. But I think that this is the low-hanging fruit in politics. So my thing is, call out the policies that you think that this person is failing on. What are they specifically doing? And sometimes people are like, well, that's too highbrow. It's like, well, I think that's important. I don't think that in general, Walz is like, let the criminals go. Like, I think that's insane. And I know that sometimes that's the perception, but that's how you kind of hit people. Right. So,
and I agree with you. And I also think if you're going to criticize the policies of the other side, you also, and I say this for no matter who it is, tell me what you're going to do different.
Yes.
Tell me what you're actually going to do. Because I don't know about you. I want to, we do know that what was it yesterday? The 63rd homicide in Minneapolis this year. We've got problems with people ripping off catalytic converters. Yeah, it's a problem. But tell me what you're actually going to do. That's what I want to hear the politicians talk about.
And in closing though, Professor, it like when it, because we got 43 days, I think we're out from the election.
It's close to 40. Yeah.
Now, do you think not debating it will help too? Because how do you think folks, especially minorities, how do you think they'll form opinions on Republicans when they don't see them a lot, right? And so, and the debates probably won't be televised as well either. So, is it fair to attack Governor Walz on things that that you've said that are in the media, that they're not lies, right? So, I mean, I don't guess how does Jensen them, how are they? They're confusing. They confuse me.
I want to see him debate. That's what I want.
I think debates help. Do you think they help, Professor?
Yeah, we all want to see him debate. I want to hear both sides argue it out and tell me what they're going to do. And I think we should all expect that. And I also think doesn't matter who it is. I think it's unfair to hold presidents responsible for governors, I should say, governors responsible for things like inflation and stuff like that, because a lot of this stuff is beyond their control.
It's way over their head, absolutely, no doubt about it, and that's been very genuine, because I think that's the talking points that they'll come out with was the economy. Well, you can't say the economy because we've got probably, if not, if my mistake is like the best, the lowest unemployment rate in the nation is here in Minnesota. Correct, Professor?
Correct.
Yes.
About 1.6%.
So how do you go talking about the
So
economy?
I did a TikTok. I did a TikTok.
To me, the big problem for the economy here is that what I'm reading about. What do we have, like 3 openings for every worker or something like that?
Yep.
We got a lot of people out there who probably still need jobs, but need workplace training. We need to doing a better job, train people so they can get these decent jobs.
Absolutely, Professor.
It's always great having you on, and I think this time around we were able to have a deeper peel back the discussion, and I honestly I enjoy that, Professor Schultz. I would have loved to take one of your class. I mean, I was at the U, but I think his name is Johnson. I can't remember his first name, but I took him for a bunch of constitutional stuff. And
Tim Johnson.
Yeah,
you missed out.
Yeah, and I
he was one of my students.
Oh, we'll see.
Oh yeah,
there you go.
And we used to have great conversations, man. I mean, I love this stuff, but I appreciate you coming on the show. Anybody that's listening to this, or if you're watching this live stream, please take a look at your local library or your school to request this book, Constitutional Precedent in the United States Supreme Court Reasoning, because that's kind of the best way to get this book out there, and make a plug out there to your librarian to pick up this book.
And you'll be back, right, Professor?
I will be back. Have me back sooner than as opposed to later.
Absolutely, especially before the election comes up. By the way, Ray Dean says hello.
I saw Ray. Hi, Ray.
Thank you, Professor. Have a great evening.
Thank you for coming on.
Good night.
You know, Ray should know when we talk about Ilhan, right, and not debating. She wouldn't debate him either, right? And this is something that she does. She doesn't debate. You know, she's afraid. I don't think she can articulate.
She doesn't have to. That's the thing.
She doesn't, and that's the sad part. But I think that a lot, which is true when an incumbent, and it goes for any party.
And you're leading by a high percentage.
You tend to be safe. You know, like why do I want to get caught in the minutia of looking silly to lose, right? And that's exactly what it is. Because I believe Ray would have killed her. I believe even Lacey Johnson would have killed her, and no doubt CC will. Yeah, absolutely. Because I've been seeing CC in the hood, and full disclosure, I'm proudly working with her and trying to get her message out. Because I think that ABI. Anybody but Ilhan, okay? ABI, anybody but Ilhan. And I think the 2,200 voters, excuse me, she came close to losing.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's for an incumbent that was as popular as her, bro. You couldn't have told me that prior to the primary. I would have called you a damn liar.
Right.
You know, so that's pretty big.
I also did want to shout out to everyone down in Florida. Obviously, Hurricane Ian hit around the southwest corner of Florida, and it's been working its way up. So honestly, there's, I think, it's like Florida disaster, or I know for a fact, I'm not trying to plug Rubio, even though I like Rubio.
Oh,
if you go to Marco Rubio's website, it will lead you directly to the Florida disaster.
I don't think so.
No, it does. Like a bunch of Democrats, Republicans in Florida, when instead of visiting their campaign page, it goes right to this disaster relief in Florida. But yeah, my true honest prayers to the people of Florida as they go through this time. It's terrible to have to go through any hurricane, any big natural disaster like that. So just wanted to give a shout out. I know that Gonzo, he had a comment earlier. Hope you and your family are safe, brother.
Absolutely.
Everybody else in Florida, I know I got a goddaughter out there. I got a family out there, so everyone stay safe out there. And
find shelter. Don't think that you can.
If you hunkered down, I
hopefully it's safely.
Yeah.
You know, because people tend to do that. You know, I have kinfolk that
down in Texas,
Katrina.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I know that this one, but there was the last one that with the tip, and this one's going on the tip of some of the southern states. I know Tennessee is going to be
it's gonna
very tip of it.
Like flip around and then go out to the.
So that's and sometimes we get the remnants of the bad weather with the rain and things of that nature. So we feel it too, but we absolutely are not feeling a hurricane. It was 4 this morning when I left for work. Did it reach 5 yet? The hurricane?
So it almost hit 5 before it made landfall, but then it was barely short when it slammed into Florida, and so it was almost to a 5. Crazy wind, and it's slow moving, so it's dropping a lot of moisture as it's going through. But like I said, just thoughts and prayers to everyone down in Florida.
Stay safe, man.
If you guys like the show, make sure to visit our link tree. You can find us also on TikTok at Black Rep Black Dem Show. You can also find me on TikTok at AK Kamara. Jamar one day will create a TikTok. But if you go to our link tree, please do that. If you enjoyed our conversation we had with Professor Schultz, please do go and support us. Linktree/BRBD. You'll be able to see that little Patreon link, and that will get you connected directly to becoming a subscriber of the show. So you can make sure to help us keep this political discourse that's civil alive.
Listen, no more hiatus. We're back next week with a great guest. As long as you're here and he's here, I'll be here.
I'll be here.
And if you be here, and if he's wait a minute. Do I get is my sound ready, producer?
That's a good question.
You didn't even have to say it.
Okay. I'm sorry. Just because we've been gone for a while, So the mere ideal after the Dobbs case, the Republicans think that it's gonna be a red tsunami and beat Democrats, or the mere ideal that Jensen thinks that he's gonna beat sorry ass Tim Walz. Man, here's what I think.
Jenga's gonna kill that boy.
I'm AK Kamara.
I'm Jamar. Check us out next week.